Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and here with Naomi Watts from Feud, Capote versus the Swans. And you've spent, I think, the bulk of your career really in films, but you've been diving into series a lot lately for several years, like Twin Peaks, The Watcher, now Feud. And I'm just curious, what is your favorite aspect of this type of long form storytelling? What keeps you coming back?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, the long form is just it. It's fun when you find a piece of writing that draws you in and a character that you love to play. I mean, I wish that some of those things that you mentioned had not come to an end. I would have been delighted to, been going on the year after year thing. Particularly Babe. I mean, it was just such a wonderful piece of storytelling that they created. I mean, obviously based on real stories, but this character just felt like such a good fit. I really, really haven't had so much joy in playing a character for a very, very long time. So um, the long form can be really liberating for that reason, because you discover things as you go. You're not getting the scripts all at once. I think we got maybe three or four quite close to the front, and then the rest came as we were filming. And yeah, like I said, you just get to discover more and more in the making of it.
Yeah. Well, in this one, as you said, you're playing Babe Paley, and she's a very glamorous person. Her appearance always has to be quite perfect. Her home has to be perfect, even on her daughter's birthday. While you were kind of creating her and researching her, did you get a sense of where does that drive for perfection come from?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly was fascinated by it because, and the swan analogy that Capote comes up with is a perfect way to describe it, like pure elegance and beauty from, above the surface, but below what they're doing in order to stay afloat is like, pretty gargantuan and a huge amount of effort. And that was the perfect analogy. I think if you look closer going into where that might have the foundation been created was probably like her father invented brain surgery basically, and I think he had extraordinary discipline. And I mean, there's even in the research a story about how he got the news of his son passing in a horrific accident, and he had to go on and complete the surgery or start the surgery even that day as it was scheduled. And can you imagine that level of concentration, focus, and sacrifice? And I think knowing that story must have affected the entire family. That, I mean, obviously the death affected the entire family, but how he dealt with it just seems to inform. And yeah, I think Babe was disciplined in different ways. Aesthetically, beauty just mattered in such a deep way for her.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of fashion photography of Babe, but how much was out there for you to grab when you're thinking of her voice, her physicality? Where did you look to for
Well,
inspiration?
that was the hardest part about playing the character, was because there was nothing available footage wise, only wonderful pictures, as you said. And I would just find myself looking really deeply into, any detail that could be discovered, how she held her fingers and placement of her hands. And it just seemed to me that she was a very gentle, graceful, elegant woman at all times. And and that's probably why she was never there wasn't any video available, because I think it was her that elegance that wanted to stay out of the press and not seek the attention, that was while she was still the envy of so many people in New York. Um, but yes, it was far more elegant to be, sort of quietly graceful.
Yeah, I think you can. kind of like look at the elegance of Babe and the Swans and sort of on one hand see them as maybe superficial, but there's also they seem to also be carrying a lot of pain, I would
Yeah.
say. Does that resonate with you? Is that what you kind of found
Yeah,
with the
that
character?
yes, but as the pain hidden with a soldier on mentality, never to make her pain become cumbersome to anybody else or even herself. There was a sense of there was a fragility, but a thick skin in order to just keep going um and that takes strength. So it's quite an interesting complexity to examine, certainly as an actor playing those kind of characters. I mean, obviously, the pain that she went through within her marriage, the infidelities and the humiliation that comes with that. So I think she was not a superficial person at all. I think there was an extreme amount of stuff going on behind all of this presentation.
Mm. Well, you mentioned her marriage, and you craft a really interesting relationship with her husband, who's played by Treat Williams, and it's actually his, unfortunately, his final role. Um, I would love just if you can talk about what it was like getting into that nitty gritty with him, of because they hurt each other, but also really care for one another.
Yeah, there was I don't know if codependency is the right word, but a closeness, and I think, you know, the way we told the stories towards the end of her life, a willingness and openness to allow some of that pain or that anger to dissipate. Um, but yeah, those scenes with Treat, you know, my heart breaks because I think he had, it's fair to say, I think he had a wonderful time making this, as we all did. Um, and I think a lot of us feel really lucky to be getting our hands on such great material at this point in our lives. And he's even older, and was, and so yeah, those opportunities are not always so accessible. And the writing was just so wonderful. Every day we would get a new script, or every time we would just go, oh my God. And he was really pained by playing this character that was, you know, not making great choices all of the time, and but you know, nonetheless throwing himself into it. And you know, and then we would talk a lot in between the scenes, and um you know, sometimes quite shaken up by some of the things we had to do and say. Um and he's a yeah, I mean, beautiful, emotional human being. And I'm just so sad that he doesn't get to share the accolades, you know, because his work is wonderful. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Certainly is. And as far as the material, I think some of my favorite bits of writing and scenes in general are just the lunches and dinner scenes, like especially at you know, the restaurant every day. And you have this incredible cast of women, all of these amazing women as the Swans. And there is so much packed into all of your glances, looks,
Mm.
the subtext under the lines that you're all saying to one another. What was the atmosphere on set for those scenes like?
I mean, to be honest, a lot of concentration, because we had lots of words and lots of continuity with eating food or putting forks down and drinking wine and lighting a cigarette. You know, that was, I feel like we didn't really get to know each other until almost the press, you know, the promotional side of things, because we were always, you know, wanting to do our best work. And there were moments where we would get to talk, but really more small talk. And when you live in the city that you're working in, you just take yourself home. You don't, like, if, let's say, if you're shooting on location in Thailand or something, you're having dinners together. And you know, this was not the case. But I knew some of the girls before, but not super well. But I've come to know them much better. And again, we were all just lapping up the wonderful material that we were playing with, and it was a great experience. Yeah.
Mm. And of course, I have to talk about Tom Hollander as Capote because the two of you have such a fascinating relationship together in this. What was it that you think made Babe and Truman so deeply connected to one another?
I think they both had a hole in their lives where there's a love that's not there, and intimacy, like an intimacy that um, was never formed, and they fell into each other. He was fascinated by these women, this extraordinary group of women that were just so elegant and graceful. Why? How did they get to this point? What did they do? What did they sacrifice? And I think she had never had a relationship in her marriages where she felt seen and heard in the way she wanted to be. She had close girlfriends, but there was always some fear of husband stealing, or maybe some of that. So I think she really gave herself to him, and in a way that she'd never experienced before, and it just felt safe. And in a way, they were like peas in a pod. Even though they were very different, they were carrying the same kind of pain.
Yeah. I really loved the final two episodes stayed with me quite a lot, which is featuring the death of both of those characters, because despite it all, they show up for one another in as they're dying, and it's the show allows itself to get a little surreal, and it's quite comforting in a way as a audience member to see that enduring connection. What was it like filming those scenes?
Heartbreaking, truly. I'll never forget the scene that we shot last. It just broke me. And a lot was tied up in it, of course, not just the story that we were telling about Capote and Babe. Um, it was also the end of the experience, and I felt like I was saying goodbye to my character, to Tom, the actor, to Ryan and Robbie and Gus, and the whole experience. So it was deeply moving. But I think it's commenting on the fact that despite all of the pain and drama and humiliation and betrayal that went down, there was still love there. And when you come close to death, what is it that really matters, like, in your life? What are you thinking about? And I haven't got to that place, but I imagine that you really are thinking about the things that moved you and that mattered, and that sort of changed you. And it's too exhausting to carry the anger and the bitterness and the regrets for too long. And then when you get close to death, maybe you just let those things go and feel the love again.
Yeah. It's very emotional. I think it's really unique that a series, can hold something like a conversational Cote Basque scene as well as that sort of death montage. And Gus Van Sant, I think, just has such specific visions like that when he directs. What was it like having him in the director's chair?
Oh, well, luckily I'd had an experience with him before, so um, he's so warm and caring, and he's not super like he doesn't give you tons of direction. He really just wants to see you liberated and see what ideas come. And if he's not connecting with the idea that you've presented, then he'll be very specific. Um, and he just creates a really safe place, and he seems very sure of himself. Didn't need like nervous coverage of like this angle and that angle, and he knows exactly what he's looking for. So he's got that level of confidence and preparation and trust in himself. And there were some times where we did this thing that was very freeing. He would have us do and I remember this from the time that we shot a film before, was he would have you do the whole scene but without the dialogue. So then it's sort of like a little way of discovering what else can be told in that piece of storytelling, you know, without the words. Like suddenly a hand movement becomes so important. Or, you know, like you got to do the whole thing again with the actor, and it's just in looks, and so it informs you. So it's a good kind of experiment.
I love that. You're also an executive producer on this series, and I'm curious, what is it about a project that makes you want to take on that additional task and
Ryan Murphy.
responsibility?
Ryan Murphy. I mean, it's a Ryan Murphy world that he has created, and he was so generous to invite me into that territory. And he did it with The Watcher as well, and he's done that with multiple people, and you just trust him. He knows exactly the world he's creating. He trusts the team that he's chosen, and they all deliver. It's like that is a well-oiled machine, and it's very much a team collaborative spirit, and yeah, it's I felt very lucky.
Well, it's fantastic work. Thank you so much for bringing this story to the screen. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. It was a wonderful chat, Naomi.
Thank you so much.